Good morning. I'm going to give you 5 minutes of Frank Korea as an update on the Florida elections here in 2018. So we are about 7 weeks away from results night. It's not election night. There's 2 weeks of early voting. Absentee ballots go out 5 weeks before the election, and unless there's some weird last-minute thing to pop up, our ballots are pretty much set at this point. So what is the state of the race? On the governor's race? And this is where people need to get a better understanding of polls. Andrew Gillum on most polls is somewhere between 2 and 4 points up on Republican nominee Ron DeSantis. And people say, polls don't matter, they don't mean anything. Donald Trump was down by 4, he won by 5, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. There's a thing called margin of error and statistical anomalies, right? So the margin of error on most polls is somewhere between 4 and 5. So let's say Andrew Gillum is up in a poll by 4. That means if you ran the poll 20 times, 19 of those times, Andrew Gillum would be up somewhere between 5 above 4, which is 9, or 5 less than 4, which is down by 1. And that is how you take into account polling. So yeah, go back to 2016. If Donald Trump is down by 2 and wins a state by 2, that's a good poll. That's not a bad poll. That's actually what is supposed to happen in a poll, is that it very much can happen. Now that race, you've got, with Ron DeSantis, he's got to thread the needle a little bit better than what he's doing. It's hard to do a corruption opposition candidate when one of your biggest supporters is thought to be incredibly corrupt. So Andrew Gillum has a lot of problems in Tallahassee. Again, nothing has been directly tied to him yet, but there is a bunch of stuff with even his own brother and a lot of staff, and they're paying a lobbyist like $90,000 to lobby when you're in Tallahassee. Like, can't you just like pick up the phone and knock on a state rep's doors? I don't know. You think you would have, why would you pay $90,000 to a Miami lobbyist? But whatever, you got to thread the needle. He's got to do a better job of campaigning on that. For Andrew Gillum's side, just weather the storm and figure out turnout models. Now on the Senate race, most polls have most polls have Rick Scott up by 2 points or down by 1 and somewhere in between. So again, let's say you are in a poll with Rick Scott up by 1, and the margin of error, let's say they've got a lot more numbers on it. It's a 4-point poll. It means that Rick Scott is somewhere between up by 5 or down by 3. If you ran the poll 19 times out of 20, that one additional time is the anomaly. That's the times where you get the, that random outlier, if it's done correctly. And this is where money is important, but not necessarily everything, and it's about how you use your money. So in the last week, Rick Scott and allies spent about $100,000 less than Bill Nelson and allies. But between the two candidates, Rick Scott spent about $1 million more than Bill Nelson. So why does that matter? Why do I bring that up? Because the candidate and only the candidate, is under federal law, has to be given the lowest possible rates to buy advertising in newspapers, TV, radio. I believe it even extends to billboards and other alternative media. So you're getting more bang for your buck if you're giving the money to a candidate to spend on ads than if you give it to a political action group. So while the political action people have caught up, that spending is not enough. It's not equal. So Rick Scott is still spending more money on ads than Bill Nelson is. And while the polls have gotten tighter, and that's expected, how much of an impact is that extra spending going to happen? We don't know. We're sort of in a holding pattern for both campaigns and most campaigns right now because of the storm in the Carolinas. While more eyeballs are out watching campaigns because they're staying, when you're seeing more local news, you probably want to get more coverage of it, and you want to see it in real time. You may not have as many commercial breaks, so every commercial break means a lot more. So that is the state of the major offices when it comes to some of the smaller races or congressional races. I will actually give a compliment to the New York Times. They are doing live polling, so you can actually see, depending what race is running, and they're in it on Florida 26 the other night, where they are. Now, I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know if they're robocalling it. I don't know if they're putting a live person on there. But you can actually see how a poll gets done. You can see the sausage being made. And in that race, when I looked at it, they say don't look at a poll until it gets 150 people. Really, you want to poll somewhere between 200 and 500 applicants. And I don't know if this was likely polling or likely voters or registered voters. It didn't really say that. Didn't get the breakdown in ethnicity. But like in Florida 26, it took 9,000 people to get to 110 people to pick up the phone and answer the question. And not all of them sided for one candidate or the other. I don't know how that ended, but it is a shout out to people who want to do polling to see, or at least how polls are made, how it is so difficult. Now, taken to modern days where not everyone has a home phone, and not everyone pick up a phone, and you see why sometimes polling is difficult, but why they do matter. And if everything does right and everything works out right, the polling is decent, then you'll have an idea how close that election is. I'm still a believer that 26 is going to stay with Carlos Curbelo, but that polling did, that live polling did say that his opponent was leading, at least when I last checked. So we'll see. Like and subscribe, and have a great day.